Before dawn touches the waters of the Indian Ocean, when the horizon is still a long, dark line drawn between night and day, the sea feels like a silent archive, holding stories of the civilizations that once ruled its waves. Among these forgotten mariners, one stands out not for building an empire of conquest, but for shaping a world connected by trade, culture, and ideas. This is the story of ancient India's maritime empire, a vast oceanic network that flourished long before global trade had a name. For centuries, the Indian subcontinent was not merely a land of kingdoms and dynasties. It was a gateway, an anchor point in one of the most influential maritime systems the ancient world ever witnessed. Indian traders sailed to the shores of East Africa, Arabia, Persia, Sri Lanka, and Southeast Asia. Their ships carried spices that rewrote culinary cultures, textiles that transformed economies, and philosophies that sparked spiritual revolutions abroad. Yet, unlike the naval powers of Europe centuries later, India's influence flowed not through force, but through exchange. Across the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, monsoon winds served as natural engines, pulling Indian ships along predictable routes. These winds linked distant civilizations into a shared commercial rhythm. With every voyage, Indian merchants brought back not just wealth, but stories of distant ports, of gold-rich African coasts, bustling markets in Arabia, and island kingdoms where Sanskrit words echoed in royal courts. This documentary traces that world, the origins of India's seafaring traditions, the culture that grew around its ports, the technologies that carried sailors across vast oceans, and the global connections forged on the decks of wooden ships. It is a story woven into the foundations of Southeast Asian temples, hidden in African trade routes, and preserved in ancient manuscripts from Rome to China. Tonight, we dive into a maritime legacy often overshadowed by land-based histories. A legacy that reveals how ancient India didn't just trade goods, it shaped continents. And through the waves of the Indian Ocean, it carried ideas powerful enough to transform civilizations. To understand India's rise as a maritime force, we must journey thousands of years back, long before the Mauryan emperors, before the Tamil kings, before Buddhism crossed the seas. The earliest clues lie in the Indus Valley civilization, whose coastal settlements reveal a society already deeply engaged with maritime activity. At Lothal, a remarkable discovery stunned archaeologists: a sophisticated dockyard, complete with flood control systems, wharves, and channels that connected directly to the Arabian Sea. Built around 2400 BCE, it suggests an astonishing level of engineering and an economy dependent on seafaring trade. From this port, merchants sailed westward, reaching the ancient cities of Mesopotamia. Tablets from Sumer mention a distant land called Meluha, widely believed to be the Indus region, whose traders brought beads, gems, timber, ivory, and perhaps even cotton, one of India's earliest signature exports. As the Indus civilization declined, maritime traditions did not fade. Instead, they migrated eastward, carried by new societies rising across the subcontinent. During the Vedic Age, communities gradually expanded toward the coastline. What began as a predominantly inland society transformed over centuries as interactions with the sea deepened. By the first millennium BCE, coastal settlements grew into thriving trading hubs. Ports such as Sopara on the west coast and Kavirapattinam on the east became gateways for international exchange. Geography played a decisive role in this evolution. India's coastline stretches over 7,500 kilometers, touching the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal, and the vast Indian Ocean. This geographical openness naturally encouraged maritime exploration. But the true catalyst was the monsoon system. Ancient Indian sailors recognized the predictable rhythm of the winds, the westerly monsoon that carried ships toward Africa and Arabia, and the returning easterly monsoon that guided them back home. This knowledge transformed the Indian Ocean from an unpredictable expanse into a navigable highway. By 500 BCE, India's maritime network was fully taking shape. Goods moved in all directions, spices and textiles westward to Arabia and Persia, pearls and gemstones eastward to Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia, rice, elephants, and craft goods northward to the Ganges Plains. These exchanges weren't merely economic. They brought languages, artisans, and ideas into contact with distant worlds. The early history of Indian seafaring is therefore not a story of sudden emergence, but of gradual evolution, a civilization shaped by rivers, winds, and coastlines, growing from inland cities to international ports. And as these ports flourished, India's maritime identity became impossible to ignore. Daily life along ancient India's coasts pulsed with a vibrancy found in few other regions of the ancient world. From Gujarat and Maharashtra to Tamil Nadu and Bengal, port cities were melting pots where merchants, monks, fishermen, sailors, and foreign travelers mingled in bustling markets scented with spices and the salty air of the sea. For coastal communities, the ocean was not a barrier. It was a companion and a provider. Fishermen set out before dawn, navigating calm waters in wooden catamarans and stitched boats. Merchant guilds organized large expeditions, maintaining sophisticated networks across the Indian Ocean. These guilds, some of them incredibly wealthy, functioned like early multinational corporations with branches in Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, and even southern China. Their decisions shaped trade flows, influenced regional politics, and created stable commercial links between distant cultures. Religion and spirituality infused every aspect of maritime life. In Hinduism, the ocean was personified as Varuna, the guardian of cosmic order. Sailors prayed at coastal temples before each journey, seeking protection during storms and long voyages. In southern India, temples stood close to the shoreline, their towers visible from far offshore. They served as landmarks for sailors, guiding ships safely to harbor. But perhaps the most profound cultural export of maritime India was Buddhism. From the 3rd century BCE onward, Buddhist monks traveled by sea to Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. They carried palm leaf manuscripts, relics, and teachings that would transform the spiritual identity of entire regions. These missions were possible only because Indian maritime networks were already established, providing safe routes and familiar ports along the way. Buddhist art, architecture, and philosophy thus spread far beyond the subcontinent, leaving enduring imprints in places like Angkor, Borobudur, Bagan, and Ayutthaya. Indian culture flowed outward, just as foreign influences flowed inward. Roman coins flooded Indian markets, especially during the early centuries CE. African traders brought gold, ivory, and exotic animals. Arabian merchants introduced new crops, mathematical ideas, and ship designs. Indian society absorbed these influences with remarkable openness. Economically, India's coastal regions were engines of immense productivity. Textiles, especially cotton and silk, were among the most valuable exports. Indian dyeing techniques were famous, and fabrics from the subcontinent became prized commodities across the ancient world. Spices such as pepper, cardamom, and cinnamon traveled westward, becoming luxuries on Roman tables. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian hardwoods, aromatic resins, and minerals found eager buyers in Indian ports. Art and architecture mirrored this cosmopolitan world. Sculptures depicted foreign traders with distinct hairstyles and clothing. Temples featured motifs inspired by Southeast Asian styles. Maritime themes appeared in local literature, especially in Tamil Sangam poetry, which celebrated the bravery of mariners and the wealth brought by the sea. Society in ancient India's maritime world was therefore not isolated or inward-looking. It was outward-facing, dynamic, and deeply interconnected. The sea shaped their identity, their livelihoods, and their worldview. And through their voyages, they shaped the cultural landscape of half the ancient world. The rise of ancient India's maritime empire was not an accident of geography. It was a triumph of innovation, engineering, and scientific insight. Indian sailors crossed vast oceans with a confidence few ancient civilizations could match. And behind that confidence lay remarkable achievements that turned the Indian Ocean into a navigable, interconnected world. One of the most significant innovations was shipbuilding. India's coasts were home to dense forests of teak, a durable wood resistant to saltwater, pests, and decay. From this natural advantage emerged shipyards capable of constructing impressive vessels. Early Tamil literature describes ships as large as mountains, capable of carrying enormous cargoes across long distances. Archaeological evidence from sites like Archaeology and Kavarapattanam shows sophisticated construction techniques. Planks fastened without metal nails, stitched hulls reinforced with coir ropes, and multi-decked cargo vessels suited for ocean travel. Navigation was another field where Indian mariners excelled. Long before the magnetic compass arrived from China, Indian navigators relied on celestial knowledge, calculating routes through the positions of stars, the phases of the moon, and the regular pulse of the monsoon winds. They understood the Hippolyte wind, the seasonal southwestern monsoon that carried ships from Africa to India, and the reverse wind that guided them home. This knowledge turned travel across the Arabian Sea into a predictable cycle, allowing merchants to plan annual voyages with remarkable accuracy. Indian innovations extended beyond the technical. The maritime empire also achieved extraordinary cultural and intellectual milestones. Buddhism, which emerged in the heart of the Indian subcontinent, became one of the world's largest religions through maritime networks. Monks traveled thousands of kilometers across the Bay of Bengal, establishing monasteries, translating texts, and shaping the spiritual landscapes of Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, and Indonesia. Indian artistic and literary traditions also traveled across the sea. Sanskrit inscriptions found in Cambodia, Vietnam, and Java testify to the influence of Indian script and scholarship. Local epics, such as the Ramayana in Indonesia, were adapted into new languages and integrated with indigenous traditions. Even architectural styles, like those seen in Angkor Wat or Borobudur, carry faint yet unmistakable echoes of Indian design elements. Equally transformative was India's mastery of trade goods. Textiles woven in Gujarat and Tamil Nadu became prized commodities in Rome and Arabia. Spices, pepper, cardamom, turmeric, defined international trade for centuries. Indian steel, particularly wood steel, was so advanced that it revolutionized weapon making in the Middle East, giving rise to the famed Damascus blades. These achievements did not create an empire defined by military conquest. Instead, they built something more enduring, a network of cultural exchange, economic prosperity, and technological progression. Ancient India became not just a participant in global trade, but one of its foundational architects, connecting continents through ingenuity and exploration. Behind every great maritime civilization stand leaders, visionaries, innovators, and explorers who shaped its direction. Ancient India's maritime empire, though not a centralized political entity, was guided by rulers and merchant guilds whose influence stretched across oceans. One of the earliest champions of maritime expansion was Emperor Ashoka of the Mauryan Empire. After his conversion to Buddhism in the 3rd century BCE, Ashoka sent missions not to conquer lands, but to spread peace and spiritual knowledge. His envoys crossed the sea to Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, and possibly as far as the Mediterranean. These missions laid the groundwork for a spiritual network that reinforced India's presence across maritime routes. Ashoka's influence endured for centuries, helping Buddhism flourish far from its birthplace. The most powerful maritime rulers in Indian history, however, emerged from the Tamil South. The Chola Empire, particularly under Rajaraja Chola I and his son Rajendra Chola I, transformed India into a true naval power. Rajaraja built a navy that protected sea routes and encouraged international trade. But it was Rajendra who launched one of the most impressive naval expeditions of the medieval world. In the 11th century, he led a massive fleet across the Bay of Bengal, striking at Srivijaya, a Southeast Asian maritime kingdom that controlled strategic choke points. This campaign was not an act of conquest. It was a strategic move to secure trade networks that linked India to China. Beyond kings and emperors, merchant guilds played a crucial role. The Ainuruvar, Manigramam, and Anjuvanam guilds acted as commercial ambassadors of India. They established trading communities in Sri Lanka, Java, Sumatra, and even China. Their seals and inscriptions reveal a professional class of traders who negotiated political treaties, built warehouses, and secured safe passage for ships. They were the silent architects of India's maritime influence. These figures, rulers, monks, merchants, and sailors, did not merely expand trade. They shaped cultures, forged alliances, and carried India's ideas across the ocean, building connections that still echo today. No maritime civilization rises without facing the unpredictable will of the sea and the ambitions of rival powers. For ancient India, the maritime world was both a pathway to prosperity and a battlefield shaped by storms, politics, and competition. The most immediate challenges came from nature itself. Indian sailors braved monsoon cycles that, though predictable, carried immense risks. A single misjudgment could wreck entire fleets. Cyclones along the Bay of Bengal destroyed ports, swallowed coastal towns, and wiped out trading communities. Some ancient harbors, such as Muziris, were lost to catastrophic flooding, disappearing beneath layers of silt and sea. Piracy posed another constant threat. The waters between Sri Lanka and the Tamil coast became hunting grounds for pirates who targeted merchant ships loaded with spices and textiles. Kings stationed naval patrols across busy routes, but piracy remained a recurring menace throughout antiquity. Political instability also created vulnerabilities. When powerful kingdoms collapsed, whether in the Deccan, the Tamil regions, or the Indo-Gangetic plains, their maritime networks weakened. The fall of the Roman Empire in the West sent shockwaves across the Indian Ocean trade system. Roman gold, once a constant presence in Indian markets, dwindled dramatically, affecting local economies. Competition intensified as new maritime powers emerged. Arab traders, skilled sailors and navigators began dominating westbound routes from the 7th century onward. Their rise didn't erase India's maritime influence, but it reshaped the balance of power. To the east, the Srivijaya Empire asserted control over key checkpoints around Sumatra, often determining the flow of goods between India and China. Internal conflicts among Indian kingdoms further complicated the maritime landscape. Rival powers fought to control lucrative ports such as Bharuch, Tamarlipti, and Kavaripattinam. Wars disrupted trade, damaged infrastructure, and frightened foreign merchants who depended on stability. Yet the most transformative challenge arrived in the 15th and 16th centuries. European powers, first the Portuguese, then the Dutch and British, entered the Indian Ocean with heavily armed ships and expansionist agendas. They introduced naval warfare on a scale unknown in the region, imposed monopolies on spices, and captured strategic ports. Indian maritime traditions, built on centuries of peaceful exchange, were overshadowed by European naval dominance. Through natural disasters, piracy, political upheavals and foreign aggression, India's maritime world endured, but not unchanged. These challenges slowly eroded the vast oceanic network that once linked continents through Indian ingenuity and exploration. The decline of India's maritime empire was not a dramatic collapse, but a slow, layered transformation shaped by shifting political, economic, and technological forces. For centuries, India had been the beating heart of the Indian Ocean trade system. But gradually, new powers, new routes, and new ambitions changed the map of global commerce. The first signs of transformation appeared with the rise of strong regional kingdoms in Southeast Asia. Empires like Srivijaya, Majapahit, and Khmer developed their own maritime identities, controlling key straits and sea lanes that once flowed freely under Indian influence. Though culturally connected to India, they became powerful competitors in shipping, trade, and diplomacy. Meanwhile, political fragmentation within the subcontinent weakened India's cohesive maritime strength. As northern kingdoms fell to invasions and southern powers fought among themselves, no single force maintained the large-scale naval coordination that once guided commerce across the ocean. Major ports like Muziris were destroyed by natural disasters or silting, while others faded as inland empires shifted priorities away from the sea. But the greatest turning point came with the arrival of Europeans. When the Portuguese reached the Indian Ocean in the late 15th century, they encountered a thriving, peaceful trade network and immediately sought to control it through force. Their heavily armed ships introduced a new model of naval domination. They captured ports, imposed taxes, and disrupted long-established trade routes. For the first time, Indian merchants faced a foreign power bent on monopolizing the seas. The Dutch and British followed, each reshaping maritime commerce to serve their colonial ambitions. Indian shipbuilding traditions, once unmatched, struggled against European technologies and capital. Merchant guilds lost influence, and coastal economies became tied to the demands of global empires. Yet this was not a disappearance. It was a transformation. Indian maritime identity adapted, survived, and persisted in new forms. Even under colonial rule, Indian sailors, called lascars, crewed ships across the world. Coastal communities rebuilt their trading traditions, and port cities evolved into global commercial hubs. What had once been an Indian-led oceanic world became a globalized one, shaped by many powers. But the foundations remained unmistakably Indian. The legacy of ancient India's maritime empire endures not in the ruins of vanished ports, but in the living pulse of the Indian Ocean world. Its influence can be traced across continents, cultures, and the global systems that define our modern world. Perhaps the most visible legacy lies in Southeast Asia. Look at the temples of Angkor, the epics of Indonesia, or the scripts of Thailand and Cambodia, and you see echoes of Indian influence carried by ancient sailors and monks. Sanskrit loanwords still shape local languages. Hindu and Buddhist rituals continue to blend with indigenous traditions. Architectural elements, from towering gopurams to lotus motifs, reflect centuries of cultural dialogue across the sea. This legacy is not one-sided. The Indian subcontinent absorbed foreign influences just as it exported its own. Persian navigational techniques, African crops, Arabian mathematics, and Southeast Asian spices all entered India through maritime channels. This cultural fusion helped create the pluralistic societies that characterize India's coastal regions today. Economically, India's historic role as a maritime hub prefigured its modern position in global trade. Ports such as Mumbai, Chennai, Kochi, and Kolkata stand on foundations laid by ancient trading communities. The same monsoon winds that once carried wooden ships now guide commercial shipping lanes where millions of containers move each year. Modern India's fishing industries, coastal urban centers, and international trade routes all reflect a heritage shaped by thousands of years of seafaring. In recent decades, India has rediscovered its maritime identity with renewed interest. Initiatives like the Sagarmala Project and Act East policy echo ancient patterns of oceanic connection, linking India more closely with Southeast Asia and reinforcing its role in Indo-Pacific geopolitics. Maritime archaeology has brought forgotten ports like Muziris back into the public imagination, reminding the world of India's long history as a seafaring civilization. But the deepest legacy lies in the idea that peace, prosperity, and cultural exchange can flow across water without conquest. Ancient India built influence not by ruling other peoples, but by engaging with them, sharing knowledge, beliefs, and goods in ways that transformed both sides. In today's world, where oceans remain central to trade and diplomacy, that lesson is more relevant than ever. The story of India's maritime empire reminds us that the sea is not only a route to power, but a bridge between civilizations. As the sun sinks into the Indian Ocean, the water glows with the same light that once guided ancient sailors home. The waves roll toward the shore in steady rhythms, echoing footsteps from a past that refuses to fade. For thousands of years, India's mariners followed these tides, risking storms, crossing horizons, and linking distant worlds through courage and curiosity. Their ships may be gone, their ports buried under silt and time, but their story lives on in the places they touched. It lives in the carved stones of Southeast Asian temples, in the gold coins found along African coasts, in the ancient scripts etched across forgotten harbors. It lives in the shared languages, beliefs, and cultural threads that span the Indo-Pacific like an invisible map. This was not an empire of conquest, it was an empire of connection, an oceanic web where goods, stories, and ideas flowed freely, and where influence traveled not on the tip of a sword, but on the wind of a monsoon. As we leave this journey behind, the sea remains, a reminder that civilizations rise not only through land and power, but through the openness to explore, exchange, and imagine beyond the horizon. Ancient India understood this truth long before the world became global. And today, as ships continue to cross the same waters, the legacy of that maritime empire moves with them, quiet, enduring, and forever written on the waves.